Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at another very useful aspect of Flutter. Now we'll be looking at various components up to date, right? So if I take you through this document. We looked at various components. We looked at how widgets work. Then we looked at the common widgets. And there were so many different widgets we looked at, right? Text to safe area, row column, whatnot. Now, all this time, all these widgets were to display things. We were showing things that is available to the user. So we didn't look at a way to capture the user input, getting the user input back to the application so that we can do some work with that, right? So in order to do that, we will require a form. Now, if you've done web design, we use HTML form. In fact, the form elements. There are text input, number input, then there are checkbox, radio buttons, then there are drop downs, things like that. So the same, or I would say similar elements are available in Flutter as well. So in this document, if you go down towards the end, you will notice there is a section on form input and processing. So if you click that, you will be here. Okay. So this is kind of stuff that we get with Flutter forms. Now, talking of form, there are two kinds of form elements available. One is called the TextField, and there is another enhanced version called the TextFormField. So as it says, TextField is sort of simple. If you need just a couple of fields that you want to take without making things complicated, go with the TextField. But if you also want to have validation running on the form itself and stuff like that, then you can look at TextFormField widget as a component, right? There is also, actually, I've taken this from the Material 3 website. Let me quickly jump to the website. I can show you what we can do, in fact, with this. There'll be a section on theming, colors, and then also animation and things like that, also custom fonts. So I will get to that, but I just want to show you what we can do is Material 3. So Material 3 is a Google's solution for theming. If you start on the top, these are the elements from Material 3, version 3, right? These are common buttons. Then we have a floating action button, so we call it the fab, right? And then we have icon buttons, button with an icon, right? Then there are segmented buttons. These are, by the way, elements that we can use in our design work, right? These are called batches, where you have an icon and then there's a number, right? To indicate messages, for example, stuff like that. And this is another one called progress indication. These are animated icons. This is also animated progress bar. We already shown the snack bar, right? Something coming down from here and it goes away. You can send it automatically, or you can click to close that. These are called the bottom sheet, very common on iOS. So it gives you this little thing coming again from the bottom of the screen. This is the show modal bottom sheet. This is bottom sheet, right? This one basically make the background blur and then gives full focus to the bottom sheet. Then we have cards, right? These are called elevated cards. There is a little shadow here. This is the filled card, and then this is the outline card. Now, these are things you can use to, say, for example, group things. Inside the card, you can have elements. Remember our midterm activity where we were trying to bring in card and then a background picture and also some text. So that can be a card with the elevated data. And then we also looked at dialogues, right? So here's a dialogue. Now, again, the background becomes less highlighted, and the dialog is on the middle of the screen. So you can have multiple buttons which will close. So here's a full screen dialog. So the whole thing is closed. So you need to close it to see. There are divider lines suitable for menus and things like that. This is a bottom app bar. So you can have a bottom bar. And we also looked at navigation bar at the bottom, right? The other day, right? Then this is a navigation drawer, generally coming from the left-hand side. You can also have it on the right-hand side if you want. So that has a bunch of menu items which you can click, right? So here's the same thing coming from the right-hand side. So you can click it, and then you can click outside to close that. And this is called the navigation rail, where this one shows the icon and the text. This only shows the icons, right? Sort of a mini version of the navigation. Now these are called tabs. Now Android shows this on the top, whereas Apple shows at the bottom. So things go differently on different platforms. So I'm looking at the Android version. So you can see this little line shows the selected one, and also the color is different, right? And then this is the search bar. You can type this and then it'll come in the search history. Then you have the tab app bar on the top. You remember, we can customize it. We can have icons, all kinds of things you can do with it, right? These are all icons. These are the radio buttons, we call it. You can select it, unselect it, right? Then these are called chips. They have little boxes where you can select, unselect again, right? See, this is selected. This is again with another icon, right? Now this is another very famous one, the date picker. It gives you a way to select a date, right? Things are dynamic here. You can change the next or previous month, or from here you can select the year, right? You can also notice this gray color. That means you can't select. All that can be controlled from the code. Then comes the menu. So you can have different ways. You can have a button and then have a drop down. You can have this icon to drop down, or you can have something like this to select. Even here, these are actually form elements, right? So different ways to select multiple choices. And this is called the radio button. You can only select one item at a time from the given option. Now this is a inactive radio button, so you can't select it, right? Then you have sliders where you can go left and right to select it. These are switches. They're like the check boxes, but they have a visual different way to show it. So this one is nice. It shows selected, not selected, right? These are disabled switches. Like the date picker, there is also time picker. You may have already used this with Google. So, right. So you can select the time, then the minutes, right? And comes the form. Okay. So these are forms, and you can see when I click on it, the name of the form went up, right? The field went up. Hint text is, some text that you can show to people to type something. Yeah. And then these are supporting text. So it might be some help text that you can show to people in order to understand what to type there. And if you notice, there is also counter here, right? That means this little text. Now, let me type some numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, when I type, the counter is also incrementing. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, I can't, well, I can type more also, but what it says here, it's limited to 10 characters, right? And if I make a mistake, I can also show the error message here in red color. So these top ones don't have a border. This one has a border. It's called outline form field. And also, if you notice, these form field have an icon on the left icon on the right, actually a button on the right, right? So this button is generally used to cancel whatever that you're typing, right? Right, that will reset that. So again, you can have a disabled, you can outline, you can change the colors you want, whatnot. I also want to show you one more thing, which is the reason why we are using a theme rather than, of course, you can change colors of each of these items. You can, right? But then when you are designing something, we go with something called a theme. So the fact that we're using the latest theme allows us to go here and change colors. Now, for example, this one, there is something called baseline color. So right now I have selected blue. So if I go to orange, see everything is now switched to a matching orange color. You see everything. Button, the text, background, even the background is light orange, right? So if I say I want green, yeah, it's all greenish now. This is the beauty of theming. In one line, you can change the whole thing. So you don't need to worry about shadows and darker color, lighter color, or the theme will take care of it, right? Deep orange. Also, it has two modes, light mode and dark mode. I'm on the light mode. So when I press this one, it'll take me to the dark mode. There it is. Again, if I change the color to, let's say, teal, there, this is the teal color dark mode, right? Or let's say blue color dark mode, right? Again, press this to get the light mode. If you want to pick up a color theme from a picture, you can do that also. So now, for example, these are pictures. Let's say I want to pick up colors from bubbles, right? So it will pick up the colors from your picture. Now, this is very interesting. I'll show you later when you talk about themes. You can ask Flutter to look at the picture on the screen, let's say on the mobile phone, and then use the colors from that particular, let's say, picture, a photograph. So everything on the screen will be compatible with the picture you are showing, which is very interesting, right? Buttons, the backgrounds, color, everything will be matching with the picture. So that is also possible. Now this one is actually switched to Material 2, the older version, right? We don't use that anymore. If you're using the latest Flutter and Dart, the recommendation is go with Material 3. Right. So with that introduction, let's see how we can develop a little program, write a little application with Flutter where we can also use forms. So I'm going to switch to my Visual Studio. Also, I want to remind you about what we did previously regarding the state system, state management system, right? Originally, Flutter has two components or widgets, stateless widget and stateful widget. But without using Flutter's stateful widget, we went with the package called GetX, isn't it? Which actually gave us a lot of other things also. Apart from state management, it gives us language translations, jumping from screen to another screen, and also, of course, managing state. So I'm going to use GetX here to manage the data I'm getting from the form. So every time someone press something or press a submit button, the whole screen gets reloaded and repainted. So then we will lose the data if you don't keep that data in a something called a state. So I'm going to use the GetX to store this data as well. Okay. So let's create a new project. It's going to be Flutter, and I need an empty project or empty application. And I will go with this one. So I have my folder called stateful folder where I was using state related things. So forms2 is the folder name I'm going to give because I only have forms1. Enter. So you notice we need to add our package here. So I'm going to add get, right? And it's now loading the package. And I also need to add that here, isn't it? So what I'm going to do now is to get a sample done. Yeah. So I need to add this line. So this way I can see the progress happening. So I need to make sure this is going to be a material, get material app, because I'm using get. Okay. So first of all, I need a mechanism to store my field data, the form data, right? Now for that, I have to use a controller, and that is going to be extending the GetX control, right? So I need a class here for that. So I will have class, let's say form processor, let's call it, right? Form processor extends it controller, right? So GetX controller is the one I'm extending, and I'm going to call it form processor. Okay. Now there, I need to have certain elements. So I need to figure out, okay, what do I need? Let's say I need an email and a password, right? So I'm just copy pasting from my previous code. So it's easy for me to do it fast. So there is a text editing controller I'm using, right? And my method name is called email controller. So email controller and password controller are the ones I will be using in order to store my data from my form. Okay. And I might require here a form submission a method to process my form. So when you press the submit form button, it will call this method. So submit form. We'll figure out what to do here later. Okay. So generally, what we do here is we need to store the information coming from the form. So for example, I might store as a string the email of the person, and that is coming from the email controller, right? And there is a method called text. From that, I can get the email address. So similarly, I can take the password and I can store that coming from the email password controller dot text, right? Maybe since I'm not processing that, generally what we do is we take this data, send it to a backend, and then authenticate the user. Now I'm not going to do that. So all I will do is just dump that to the console. So I'll use the print statement and dump that to the screen. Okay. So maybe I'll have the email. And then the password. Just dump that to the console. That's all I'm going to do. Okay. So I'm not doing any processing of the data. So this is basically getting the data from my form. So I still haven't decided on my form yet, right? So I need to design the form now. Okay, so I have my get material app here. If I want, I can use this as it is, or I can have another a form, actually another screen to process my form. That's what we normally do, isn't it? So let's have something called the home screen. All right. Extends stateless widget. All right. It's not working. I mean, there's a red one because I need to have a build method, right? Which means I need to overwrite and get a widget build method. So I'm going to copy that here just to get it going. Okay. So the build widget has to return something. That's why it is still red. So I need to have some return statement. Something return. Okay. And here, rather than doing some work here, I should be calling the widget here. So the material app should call my home screen. So in order to do that, I should also have some other things. For example, I might have a scaffold. All this, I'm gonna cut this part. Okay, and have it here. And here I'll say home screen, call the home screen, right? Oh, construct. I have to remove the const here. Okay, all good. Let me also open my preview using Edge. Debug anyway. So there is a problem somewhere. Oh, I have a red color here. Okay. Right. Okay, my code looks all right. Now all I need to do is to start building my the form here. So I have a scaffold, I have a body. Let's also add my app bar. So again, I'm going to copy paste that code from elsewhere. So let's call it GetX form example. Right, so far so good. Now I need to bring my form elements into the screen. Okay, so to do that, I need a column because I will be having multiple things on it. So center is fine. Or I can actually start building it from the column itself, right? We can do that also here, isn't it? Column, and column has children, and then it's an array like this. And we also need to have a main axis alignment. As you know, I'll have it in the center, so that way everything will be on the middle. Right. So far so good. I need to have some form elements now. Yeah. So to do that, let's change here. Let's add our form elements inside the children. All right. So like here. So so this is how it goes. Okay, I can have my text here. But I don't need that. So this will be text FIELD, text field, right? So that's how you added form field there. And one of the first parameters you need to have, okay, let me go to the next line, controller. Remember the controller we wrote earlier, right? Up here. So this controller is what we need to use. So in fact, in order to do that, I need to inject that controller into my widget as well, which is the home screen here. So what do you mean by injecting? Well, I need to, somewhere here, I need to put that controller into my form. So here, I'll say final. My controller name is form processor. I'm going to copy that, right? And I need an object name, so I'm going to call it form FP, right? Form processor. And I need to push that into the get put, right? So get put is a method where I will be pushing my controller. So form processor is what I'm putting inside. There we go, right? So now my form processor is injected to the home screen, and here I can use that with my controller. So I'm going to use the object name, which is fp dot. Now you can see immediately I have the methods, right? So email controller is the one I used. So my text field will be passing the user data to that email controller method there. So of course, I can load it with lots of different things. I'm just not going to do that. I will just have a simple, say, a field. Okay, so nothing much. Let's see what I can see from the screen. Let's see the preview. I'm going to split the screen so that I can see the preview. Let me share the full screen. Okay. I hope you can see the whole screen now. So I added a text field and I have a controller here. Now I can basically type my email address, right? So the form is working, but I don't have rest of the thing. So we don't know what this is. So it's just a line here. So if you look at the example from the book, the document, there are things like, for example, there is something called the decoration. It's a decoration, input decoration. And then there is something called label text. There is also some border happening here. So all these things are other additional things. So let me start with the decoration, input decoration here, right? I need to close this guy. And now if you look, there is something called email here, right? I can, in fact, also have a border. So I'm going to put that as well here. So that is also within the decoration. There you have it, right? Now, it may be touching here because I haven't given spaces. So I could wrap the column inside maybe something like a padding. Then I can make it smaller as well. So now when I click here, you see the email word is jumping up. That is called the label text, right? So now I can type my stuff here. Okay. Of course, you can change all this stuff, all these colors and everything. Right now, I've given a default theme. So it's picking up blue color. But if you look at the documentation, you can also see there are things where you can change the theme as well, right? So there is home. There is a theme as well. So I'm going to copy that here, right? So blue, gray. So that's the theme. So see, immediately the color is changing. So if I change this to green. See, everything is changing, including the line color of the form and the background color and all that. If I say orange, there, right? Everything is changing. Now see, it's orange color. Okay. Red is not good. I'm going to keep it at green. Okay. So now when I click, it becomes green. Very simple. Just one line, it changed the colors. Right. Now coming back here to my form element. Let's say if I want another text field, what do I do? If you notice, I have two, in fact, support for two fields, isn't it? Password control as well. So if I copy the text controller and I have another version here, right? So I have two now. Let's call it the password. Okay. So I also have a password control. So this should be password controller. Yeah. Okay. So I can have password. I can have email. Now, they're not visually good because they're touching each other. So I need some space between these two, right? If you remember spacing, right? Where we could use space between the documents. So I've used it here as well, right? Size box. So I'm going to have a size box here. And I'm going to only add the height, let's say 20 there. Okay, good now. Space is available, right? So far, so good. I will also need space after this text field because I'm going to add a button now because we also need a button, a submit button as such, right? So for that, I can use an elevated button. Remember the elevated button? So that will have a on press event and then it has a child text child. Yeah. So I'm going to add that here. Oh, form processor. Okay. Now, this is what I'm going to call when someone presses this elevator button. So I'm calling this method, submit form method. Okay. Very simple. So I have two form elements. I have a submit button. So when someone clicks the button, I'm going to call the fp.submit. So fp is the name of my object, isn't it? From here. Right. So how does it work? Well, there we go. We have the email, we have the password, we have the submit button. So if I click it, I don't see anything happening here. Let's just see whether this is working. Now, in order to see the output, I need to go to the inspect view and also turn on the console, right? So let's delete everything. Let's try. Okay, so I'm going to click submit. There I have the information. So whatever I'm submitting, it's coming, right? Which means the data is going to my controllers. All right, now I have a few things I need to change. That is, I don't want to show the password here. Generally, when you're typing the password, we use stars and dots and things like that, right? So let's see how we can do it. Now, in order to do that, I need to again go to my decoration. And there are a couple of things I need to do, so which is here. So for the password, there is something called obscure text, right? Obscure text. And then we need to turn that on. We also need to give obscuring character. So obscure meaning sort of don't show it properly or obscure that, right? So I'm going to bring these two to the password field. So apart from the border, actually it's going after the border here. Okay, this is the text field. Oh, okay. Yeah. No. I have to finish this thing right here. And have it there. Yes. Right. So now, when I type something here, see, it's showing. Okay, I think I have a spelling mistake there. Right. So when I type something, it goes here. When I type something, it shows stars. So it can be anything you want, right? You can have X, for example. So now when I type the password, it's showing X, right? So anything you want. So that's how you create a form, a simple form. You have a email, you have a password, and I also added a border, right? Now, this is a very basic form, and it works now, yeah? So you can have any other element in here, and whatever you want to do with the data, you do in this method here, submit form. So right now, I'm just dumping that to the screen, actually the console. But in a production environment, you may be doing a couple of things. You may be validating this information. You may be sending it to a server for authentication, stuff like that, whatever it may be. Okay. So this is an example of a form. Now I'm showing very, very basic things here. But if you look at the document, in fact, the first element here, there are so many things you can load. Like say, for example, you can have autofocus, keyboard type, max length. You can have label text, icons, prefix icon, suffix icon, all that is possible, right? For example, if I have a max length, right? Say under the email, say for example here, max length, I'm saying 10, yeah? So in the email, I can't type more than that. There, I can't type. So here it's showing the count, 10 out of 10. I can't go beyond that, yeah? So that's on the max length. Similarly, there are some other interesting stuff like I have label text already. I can also have an icon, right? Say, let's have a icon here and see what happens. There, I have an icon in front of the form. You might need it, you might not need it. Anyways, colors. Right? So you can change the colors, right? Maybe you don't need that. You might need something inside the form element. So in that case, there is something called prefix icon. Yeah. So if I change this to prefix icon, now that icon will come inside the form. There it is, right? There is also a suffix icon, which is the icon is going to go to the right-hand side. So let's see. There, it's on this side. Yeah. There you generally need the eye close open, that kind of thing, isn't it? So it's called visibility icon. There, right? Then you might also require sometimes prefix text, some text that you want to show in front of the element. So that also can be done, right? There, the prefix text. When you click here, the prefix text, that is by default, it is coming. Now, for example, you may want to have +94 as a prefix text to get a phone number, right? There it comes. They can't delete it. It is there. So you can, type your phone number like that. So that's on the prefix text. There is also suffix text. Oops, suffix. No. Suffix text. right? So suffix text go to the right hand side, like in here. So either way, I mean, it's up to you to put what you want. There's also something called helper text, which is very, very useful. So let me add that as a separate thing. So that comes here, right? So you can say, please type your email or something like that. Please type your email here. Some instructions to the people to type something there, right? Now, that same space can also be used to show error messages in case if they make an error. So that goes as error text. So now if I put error text now, it will show that it will bypass the helper text. So you need some logic to validate it and then put the error text visible. So I'm not going to do that. You can, in fact, cut paste it there. By the way, now this is another very, very important one. Keyboard type. Now, you've seen on the mobile phone, when you type something on the phone, let's say you're typing an email address, you will see the @ sign there. When you're clicking on a, let's say, search bar, you will see a tick box or tick mark, not the enter key. You will see a sort of a tick mark there. And also, if it is an email address you're typing, or if you're typing an email, there is an email send icon there rather than enter key. So you are getting a dynamic keyboard depending on what you're typing. So that also can be done here. So for example, actually it won't happen on the Edge browser because I'm using the attached keyboard. So I don't see a dynamic keyboard here. But if you're using an emulator, you can see the keyboard there, right? So that's another very interesting, I recommend you to have that depending on the input, because if you're asking for a number and if you show the entire keyboard, it slows down typing. If you're asking for a, let's say, phone number, change the keyboard to number format, right? So there are different keyboard types available here. So I have a bunch of links here for you to go study, by the way. Okay, all these are very interesting links. Some are third-party links. So go study them. They show you a lot of different ways to get your forms done, right? So that's now on the Flutter form. I also wrote a little application with forms and some work, right, going on here. So I'm running that in my emulator here. So if you can see my emulator, this is the basic form. This is called a BMI calculator. A BMI, a body mass index, it requires two inputs. One is your weight in kilogram. You can see it says, please enter as kg. And then your height, please enter as centimeters. So when I give these two and press this calculate button, I will see the value here, your BMI. So let's try that. See, when I type, it gives me the numeric keypad, right? And it also gives me help text in kg. And here also it says kg. So let's say I am 70 kilogram. Let's say my weight is 70 kilograms. And let's say my height is about 170 centimeters. That's like 5 foot 7 inches, something like that. Yeah. And then I'm going to click calculate. There we go. 24.22 is my BMI. Right? When I press that, the keyboard goes away and I can see my BMI here. And did you notice my form is on the top and my BMI is at the bottom? So the screen is divided into two components. On the top, I have my form. At the bottom, I have my values here. All these are familiar component to you by now. This is the app bar. This is the form that we learned today. This is the elevated button. And these are text. And then this is, again, we used a container, right? Inside the container, we have text. And we have custom sizing for the text. And also, I'm using a double data type here with 2 decimal places. Okay. So this whole application is written using Flutter, and it's a very useful application. We can bundle this. You can have an APK and run this on your mobile phone as well. Okay. So that ends our lesson on forms. So I'm sure with these forms, you can do some very interesting stuff. And finally, you can write some interesting applications with this. Okay. You can also couple this with, say, for example, the bottom navigation, which I showed you here, right? The bottom navigation, right? Where you have icons here. So you can press one icon to see one screen and the other icon to see the next screen. So for example, going back to the BMI calculator, on one screen, you can have the calculator. On the other screen, you can have some information about what this number means. Now, I got 24, 22. Now, what does it mean? Is it good? Is it bad? You know, something like that. So it should have some explanation also, whether you are healthy, whether you're not healthy, maybe some recommendation, things like that, right? So as you notice, building Flutter application is all about bringing in the appropriate component and learning these. In fact, you can also have a single-use version of the BMI calculator also if you want. So basically bringing in these widgets, right? So having an understanding of this widget is very, very important to build Flutter applications. Okay. So these are the most famous ones. So when you know that, when you know which widget to go where, you will be able to complete your application. Also, I told you, you have to start with the UI first, isn't it? So you do a bit of sketching using pencil and paper, figure out what kind of UI you want, and then you start building that UI. So for example, here you notice the screen has two pieces. On the top, we have some, in fact, in this application, I'm using expanded or expandable widget on the top and the container at the bottom. And then I have other element inside these two pieces, right? So you start building a piece by piece and then see what kind of output you are getting. Okay, so today I wanted to show you the power of Flutter forms. I also showed you some links here. Go figure out these other advanced things that you can do with forms. Okay. There are some third party as well. So this code is available on my blog site. So you can take a copy of that. So also have a look at this document, right? And start building some interesting application with Flutter. All right. Good luck with that then.